Should have taken him out.
Good evening. My name is Sekou Dilde. I'm a buyer for a supermarket company here in town. My question is for Governor Dean. I recently read a comment that you made where you said that you wanted to be the candidate for guys with Confederate flags on their pickup trucks. When I read that comment, I was extremely offended. Could you explain to me how you plan on being sensitive to needs and issues regarding slavery and African Americans after making a comment of that nature?
Mark? Martin Luther King said that it was his dream that the sons of slaveholders and the sons of slaves sit down around a table and make common good. There are 102,000 kids in South Carolina right now with no health insurance. Most of those kids are white. The legislature cut $70 million out of the school system. Most of the kids in the public school system are white. We have had white Southern working people voting Republican for 30 years, and they got nothing to show for it. They vote for a president who cut 1% of this country's taxpayers' taxes by $26,000, which is more than they make. And I think we need to talk to white Southern workers about how they vote. Because when white people and black people and brown people vote together in this country, that is the only time that we make social progress, and they need to come back to the Democratic Party.
Reverend Sharpton, I just want to point out in the last couple of days, earlier last week, you have called some of Governor Dean's positions anti-black. It sounds very close to calling him racist.
No, I don't think the governor's a racist. I think some of his positions would have hurt us, but I think that doesn't answer, Governor, this young man's question. First of all, Martin Luther King said, come to the table of brotherhood. You can't bring a Confederate flag to the table of brotherhood. And you can't misquote Martin Luther King like that. I come out of the King movement. I didn't just read him. He talked about us leaving racism there. And I think that Maynard Jackson said that the Confederate flag is America's swastika. If a Southern person running, if John Edwards or Bob Graham had said that, they'd have been run out this race. I don't think you're a bigot, but I think that is insensitive, and I think you ought to apologize to people for that. When Bill Clinton was found to be a member of a white-only country club, he apologized. You are not a bigot, but you appear to be too arrogant to say I'm wrong and go on.
Governor Dean?
We're not going to win in this country anymore as Democrats if we don't have a big tent. And I'm going to tell you right now, Reverend, you're right. I am not a bigot. And Jesse Jackson Jr. endorsed me and has stood up for what I said. And Reverend Jesse Jackson went down to South Carolina last week and went to a trailer park which was inhabited by mostly white folks making $25,000 a year. We need to reach out to those people too because they suffer as well. I understand the legacy of racism in this country, and I understand the legacy of bigotry in this country. We need to bring folks together in this race, just like Martin Luther King tried to do before he was killed. He was right. Now, I make no apologies for reaching out to poor white people.
But Confederate flags is not for white people. And that sounds more like Stonewall Jackson than Jesse Jackson. And Jesse Jackson went down. Jesse Jackson went to South Carolina with all of us protesting the flag. The issue's not poor Southern whites. Most poor Southern whites don't wear a Confederate flag, and you ought not try to stereotype that.
All right, let me bring Senator Edwards with this comment. Senator Edwards, in the last couple of days, you have been very critical of Governor Dean on this issue. And let me try to understand, are you basically saying that the votes of those who fly the Confederate flag are too loathsome to even accept? And if so, are there any other groups whose votes you don't want?
Well, let me say, first of all, unless I missed something, Governor Dean still has not said he was wrong. Were you wrong, Howard? Were you wrong to say that?
No, I wasn't, John Edwards. Because people who fly the Confederate flag, I think they are wrong. Because I think the Confederate flag is a racist symbol. But I think there are a lot of poor people who fly that flag because the Republicans have been dividing us by race since 1968 with their Southern race strategy. I am tired of being divided by race in this country. I'm tired of being divided by abortion, by gay rights. I want to go down to the South and talk to people who don't make any more than anybody else up north, but keep voting Republican against their own economic interests, and that's what I'm saying.
Well, may I respond?
Yeah, but
may I respond? And I want to respond to this young man's question, because let me tell you the last thing we need in the South is somebody like you coming down and telling us what we need to do. That's the last thing in the world we need in the South. I grew up in the South. I grew up with the very people that you're talking about. And what Al Sharpton just said is exactly right. The people that I grew up with, the vast majority of them, they don't drive around with Confederate flags on pickup trucks. One of the problems that we have with young people today is people talk down to you. You know, you get all pigeonholed. They stereotype you. Exactly the same thing happens with people from the South. I have seen it. I have grown up with it. I'm here to tell you it is wrong. It is condescending. And the only way that we as a party are going to win the White House back is to reach out to everybody and treat them with the dignity and respect that they're entitled to. Right. That's what we ought to be doing.
Ambassador Braun, you make a comment, and then Governor Dean, you can respond, and then we'll move on. Ambassador Braun.
You know, when I was in the Senate, I opened myself up to the venom of the right-wing conspiracy by battling Jesse Helms over the Confederate flag. And I'm sitting here in Faneuil Hall and looking at that picture of having to do with the framing of our Constitution. And if you think about it, the women are relegated to the balcony and the blacks aren't even in the room. We have to, as Democrats, begin to engage a civil conversation among ourselves how we can get past that racist strategy that the Republicans have foisted upon this country, how we can bring Southern whites and Southern blacks and Northern blacks and Northern whites together, how we can come together to reclaim this country, and Latinos, and Asians, and Christians and Muslims and Jews and Protestants. I mean, we have to be able to bring people together to find the solution, because guess what? We are in a global economy. We are in a global competition. We have to deal with and address the rest of the world. And we can't do it as long as Americans are still fighting each other. And we need to find ways as Democrats to come together. Yes, this is an important conversation, but it has to be done in a way that does not play into the hands of the real racists and the real right-wing.
Your response, and then we'll move on.
I'm not going to take a back seat to anybody in terms of fighting bigotry. I'm the only person here that ever signed a bill that outlawed discrimination against gays and lesbians by giving them the same amount. What I discovered is that the fear of people who opposed that bill, which is the majority of people in my state, was mostly based on ignorance. And we have to reach out to every single American. We don't have to embrace the Confederate flag, and I never suggested that we did. But we have to reach out to all disenfranchised people. Robert Kennedy brought people together in Appalachia. Jesse Jackson did it, and we're going to bring people together in this country. I understand that the Confederate flag is a loathsome symbol, just as I understood that all the anti-gay slurs that I had to put up with in Vermont after I signed that bill were loathsome symbols. If we don't reach out to every single American, we can't win. I have had enough of campaigns based on fear. I want a campaign based on hope.
All right, we've got to move on this issue.